I talked to Brian Westbrook last week. He said, there's no reason Miles Sanders can't get 20, 25 touches a game. There just isn't. And the Eagles just don't do it. And they got to find ways to get Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell involved in this offense.
Dallas Cowboys. As you can see to my right, Jeff Kerr will be my co-host today. Fear not, John McMullen will be aboard a little later in the show. J-Mac had to take a big old jet plane down to Dallas to be there for tonight's Cowboys-Eagle can. So we got his understudy in the lineup tonight. How much is that going to affect us? We'll shoulder through. How much is this going to affect the Eagles at left tackle? Now, that's a legitimate question that I will ask to Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports, who sits in with me today. Jeff Kerr, when we wrapped up Birds 365 on Friday, I was feeling pretty good about the Eagles. I certainly liked the Eagles plus 3.5 points, and I thought, I think they can actually win this game outright. When the Mailata news broke on Friday, I broke out in a sweat, because I'm not an Andre Dillard fan, haven't been. The fact that we even had to talk about it on a daily basis here on Birds 365, who's going to be the left tackle? True competition. Is there really an argument? How much will Ari Roseman bend over to protect this guy? Well, all opinions aside, he's going to be in the lineup tonight. Are you as scared as I am?
I'm concerned. I wouldn't say scared, but this is why you draft a guy like this in the first round, Jody. This is his moment. This is his time. I don't want to hear about Andre Dillard saying, I didn't really get a fair shake. Well, yeah, you did. You lost it out to Jordan Mailata. Well, Jordan Mailata's hurt. Now it's time for Andre Dillard, the 2019 first-round pick, to step up and produce against a pass rush that's going to get after Jalen Hurts. They're going to have their chances at him. I'm not expecting Andre Dillard to be perfect, like how PFF said Jordan Mailata was last week, but I'm expecting him to keep the quarterback upright. I think that's a fair thing to ask.
Here's where it can get really ugly, and if I'm the bitter pill that you have to swallow today, Eagle fans, I'll apologize, but I'm giving you my actual feelings and takes on this. He might not only hurt the Eagles' chances to win. Here's the reason why I actually reached the level of scared. He could get the quarterback hurt tonight. I think he's that bad. And yeah, I know DeMarcus Lawrence isn't playing for the Cowboys. Both teams are dealing with pretty massive injuries, as a matter of fact. It's not just, we know Jordan Mailata for the Eagles. They lose both of the Brandons too, which I want to get your take on plenty of that as well. You're talking about the blind side of Jalen Hurts, who had an okay game last week, but is probably feeling the pressure to do a little bit more this week, may want to hang in the pocket a little bit longer. And Micah Parsons has absolutely wowed people with, number one, his flexibility to come in from linebacker and play defensive end. 8 pressures last week against the Chargers. 8 pressures against the Chargers. Now, I get it. Pressures are subjective. Sacks are sacks. You know what a sack is. When the play's over and done with, you know if a guy got a sack or not. Hits are a little subjective, but at least you know there's got to be contact there. Pressures are in the eye of the beholder, and 8 seemed like a large number for me. I didn't watch every snap of that game, but I watched plenty of it last week. He got one kind of faux sack late in the game where he got to Justin Herbert, made him throw the ball away, but it was an incomplete pass, and they gave him a sack for it, which I just thought was woefully incorrectly officiated. But the guy did wreak havoc in the San Diego backfield today, and the Dallas backfield last week in Los Angeles. I expect him to be lined up against Mr. Dillard all night long, and that scares me for the health of Jalen Hurts.
Well, that's what you would think, right? And you got to give Dan Quinn a lot of credit here. He put Micah Parsons on Storm Norton last week, the Chargers backup right tackle, because Brian Bulaga is out, and he took advantage of that. And so I totally expect Micah Parsons to be on Andre Dillard. I totally expect it, because he's not going to do this off Lane Johnson. He's just not. He's a really good player. He's probably going to, at least in my opinion, he's going to be one of the best linebackers in football sooner rather than later. But tonight he's going to be a defensive end. And this is where the Eagles really got to take advantage of the week 1 game plan, the bubble screens, the quick passes. Make sure this guy does not get killed, and make sure Micah Parsons does not beat you. let Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith over pursue, because that's what they do. They over pursue. This is what the Dallas Cowboys defense biggest weakness is, and people figured it out with Washington over the first 3 weeks, and they'll figure it out with Dallas. You just have to get the passes off quick. You cannot let Andre Dillard stand there on an island with Micah Parsons and just let Micah Parsons put Jalen Hurts on his hit list by his words. So I'm looking at it as just find ways to take Micah Parsons out of the football game, especially if he's playing defensive end.
And here's where it might actually be doable. I don't love the Cowboys cornerbacks. I don't know that if you put them on that island and do the bubble screen / really quick slants and make the Cowboys play solo on the corners, man to man, I don't know that they're up for the task. I think Devontae Smith could catch a lot of balls that way. I think you might get Rager involved and get the ball in his hands really quick tonight, let him make some plays. So we know Quez is real good on the bubble screens. It can be and should be an effective part of their game, because that's how you thwart a defense that you think is going to be quick and over pursuing. Will Nick Sirianni worry about the fact that everybody like Jeff Kerr and Jordan McDonald, John McMahon are going to come on and beat to death again? Well, why don't they throw the mid-range game? Why don't they have any intermediate routes? There's absolutely nothing over the middle. Everything's on the outside, on the outskirts. Well, it kind of has to be tonight, doesn't it?
Yeah, you would think. Like, I don't want to hear Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball over the middle of the field, because that's not what you want Jalen Hurts to do tonight. If he's throwing the ball over the middle of the field, it's probably going to get picked off, because that's one thing Dallas is strong at. It's slot cornerback, and they do have pretty solid pass coverage linebackers. But this is where I feel you got to get the short passes going. You just got to keep moving the chains, methodically move the chains, and you got to get the ball to Miles Sanders. I talked to Brian Westbrook last week. He said, there's no reason Miles Sanders can't get 20 and 25 touches a game. There just isn't. And the Eagles just don't do it. And they got to find ways to get Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell involved in this offense. They got to keep this Dallas defense on the field and keep this Dallas offense off the field, because I know the Eagles defense is a good through 2 games, Jody, but this Dallas offense can humble you really quick.
I know that yours truly doesn't get a chance to examine the players. I'm talking physically. And if I did, I'm no doctor anyway, so it wouldn't do a whole hell of a lot of good. So the next guy I want to mention that's out of the Eagle lineup, I guess shouldn't be a surprise, but it is a little bit of a surprise to me, and that's Rodney McLeod. He was supposed to be back right near the start of the season. An outside possibility could play week 1 and then was going to be week to week. Well, I was hoping it was only going to be week 1. And then I was hoping, all right, to be back for week 2. And now we're into week 3, and he's already been judged out for tonight's game. Johnny Mack gave me a hard time because I keep saying this. The Eagles could have fudged it and got him onto short-term IR, so they could have saved the roster space for these first 3 games, and you can't do that. It's got to be 6 games if it's a pre-existing injury from the year before. They could have fudged that. Shocking. People would lie about injuries in the National Football League. They do it all the time, and the Eagles could have as well. Exactly. If he's not back again by next week, they will have misjudged this thing. And I know it's an imperfect science, and Eagles doctors have their capabilities and can figure out a best guess as to when a guy's going to be back. This is a loss tonight, Jeff, because Brandon Graham also out of the lineup, significant leader on the Philadelphia Eagle defense. Rodney McLeod is a guy who is also well respected and can be a leader and can be a signal caller on that side of the D. If the Eagles need somebody to rally the troops in game, in the huddle, who's the most likely guy to do it tonight?
It would have to be Fletcher Cox or Darius Slay, right? I mean, Darius Slay's a veteran. He's been in the league since 2013. Fletcher Cox has been on this team since 2012. I know Fletcher Cox doesn't remind you of like that rah-rah guy like BG is, but he is a leader on this team. You know, he's more like a silent assassin, if you will. And, you know, he does have a presence in that locker room, but he has to step up in that role that Brandon Graham had. He has to be like, look, you know, just because the hand we're dealt isn't good, we still have to go out there and we have to get after the quarterback. And this is where I think the defensive tackles are going to make a difference in this game. Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Hassan Ridgeway. Zach Martin is a huge presence in this Dallas lineup, but the interior of Dallas's offensive line isn't as good as it once was. And they do allow Dak Prescott to basically get flushed out of the pocket and get hit. So this is where I feel Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave need to step up and say, hey, look, we're taking over the reins of this team right now. We know we got BG on the sidelines leading us, but he's not on the field. This is our team now. This is what we're going to have to do. And Darius Slay's going to have to what he's been doing, taking command of the secondary. It's just, the veterans just got to be veterans on this team. I mean, that is one good thing about the Eagles having a bunch of guys that are over 30 on this team. It does pay dividends when you lose the heart and soul of the team like Brandon Graham.
We want to focus, of course, on all Eagles players, but anytime you come into a matchup, you got to be fair. You got to look at both sides. And we've already talked a little bit about Jalen Hurts. We'll talk about him that much more. I got to give Dak Prescott the nod. I had no idea what kind of Dak Prescott was coming back to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys this year. The big injury that he suffered last year. Watched all the Hard Knock shows, immediately goes down with impingement in his arm. I said, this should be really good for the Eagles because there's no way Dak Prescott, despite the new contract, is returning looking like a $35 million a year quarterback. He really has the first couple of games, even though their running game does seem to sit in a question position. Zeke Elliott hadn't gotten off to a good start. Tony Pollard was very good last week. They're down one of their key receivers with Michael Gallup. It hasn't stopped Dak Prescott from making big plays and throwing down the ball down the field. That's going to be a big-time challenge for the Eagles cornerbacks tonight with Dak against Lamb and Cooper.
Yeah, it really is. And this is what concerns me about Dak Prescott, Jody. You know, for the first 2 years of his career, I kind of looked at him as, okay, he's a really good game manager who Ezekiel Elliott, you know, that team's Ezekiel Elliott. He only has to throw the ball 20, 25 times a game, albeit pretty well. No, he's the heart and soul of that offense right now. And he's got an arm. He can beat them downfield. I think Dallas proved once they got Amari Cooper in 2018, Dak Prescott was a really good quarterback. He just needed more weapons. And he got him in Amari Cooper. And honestly, no, CeeDee Lamb is the guy I'm worried about on this team. I have a feeling CeeDee Lamb, not that he's going to go against Darius Slay, but Steve Nelson could be in for a long night tonight. It's just CeeDee Lamb catches everything. He would have been the rookie we would have all talked about last year, if not for Justin Jefferson's historic rookie year. CeeDee Lamb, he can catch a short pass. He can beat you deep. He's a really good route runner. He's great after the catch. He's the guy I'm worried about in this offense. He's the guy I feel that if anybody goes for 10 and 170 and 2 touchdowns tonight, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb. And that's not their only weapon, though. They have Blake Jarwin. They have Dalton Schultz. You know, obviously, Cedric Wilson's a really good player, too, in the slot. Them not having Michael Gallup hurts, but between CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, all the guys I mentioned, you also have to worry about Tony Pollard catching passes out of the backfield, too. I mean, this is a team that they can just beat you in so many ways. And this is why a lot of people think that they are the favorites to win the NFC East.
Yeah, well, here's one thing we'll say, and I'll give you the same pass that I'm going to take here. Ask me after tonight's game who's the favorite to win the NFC East. Not only by the standings is it going to be the team that wins. They'll be the only 2-1 team in the division, but I'm hoping that we get a game that isn't marred by question marks and officials' calls and bad bounces and the like. I hope it's decided and the better team wins tonight, and then that will tell us, as of 3 weeks in, who is the favorite to win this division. Speaking of which, the Cowboys at home tonight. I saw a lot of really questionable calls in the NFL yesterday. I was glued to my TV. I was on CBS Sports Radio last night, leading into the Sunday night game. There was some, and I try and defend the NFL referees at almost every single turn because it's a really difficult job, and people get so passionate about it because they bet on it. I try and defend the referees, but they missed some calls yesterday, and most of the times when they missed calls, it seemed to me like the hometown team was getting the calls. How big an advantage for the Cowboys because this game's down in the Palace built in Dallas by Jerry?
Well, it's been this way for how long now, Jody? It just seems like every time there's a Cowboys game in Jerry World or in Texas Stadium, there always seems to be that controversial call that goes in their favor. And I'm not saying that's why the Eagles lose games, but I'll tell you what, I made a lot of money over the years just based on the content aspect of it, writing about a fumble kickoff that wasn't a fumble or, whatever goes on. There's always going to be that call. And I feel it's like this in every game now, but it always seems to be exemplified in Jerry World in front of the primetime audience. It's the only game on. This is why I'll be watching the Mannings tonight. I'll be curious to hear what they think of a bad call if they're paying attention at the time. So, yeah, I think there's going to be one where we're just going to be yelling at the TV or yelling at the officials. Definitely Eagles fans will be. It seems like, Dallas will get away with something. But overall, it's been like this around the league. I'm still not over the whole. And look, you got to give Justin Tucker credit for making a 66-yard field goal. But the fact that they did not call delay of game on Lamar Jackson when the play clock just didn't hit 0. It hit 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And then, Dan Campbell's absolutely right. I'm going to get an apology for the league, but what good does that do? I'm glad there's a coach that actually calls it like he sees it because he was a former player. He gets it. But it's like this every single game, Jody. I watched 8 games yesterday. There was a controversial call on every single one of them. The Kansas City Chiefs arguably lost the game on a pass interference call that probably shouldn't have been called on the 4th and 9. And then Tyreek Hill gets hugged on a Hail Mary play at the end of the game. They're never going to call it, but something like that should be called if it's a pass play. But I digress. It's going to happen. I just brace myself for it, and I'm just going to laugh because I kind of hope they show Jerry Jones kind of smirking and smiling, knowing that he may have had something to do with it.
The one that for me was maybe the most egregious, and I know it's a judgment call, but it was so blatantly obvious. How bad does your judgment have to be? The fourth quarter, the Sunday night game, Devontae Adams was just laid out by a helmet-to-helmet hit that was so blatant and so obvious, and I believe that he was really hurt. Because you might question it because he got back up and made 2 catches in the final drive of the game that got the Packers into the field goal winning position that they got. But prior to that, he had been laid out by a blatant helmet-to-helmet hit, and the referee's flag is still in their pocket. How do you miss something like that when that is a trending topic in the National Football League, has been for the last several years? Defenseless receiver, they throw that flag anytime they get the chance, and they don't do it against the best wide receiver in the National Football League. How do you miss something like that?
Yeah, I don't get that. And Jimmy Ward intently meant to hit him. And I always said this. You really want to get rid of this, defenseless receiver stuff or, the helmet-to-helmet hits. Here's an ultimate penalty for you. You get the flag thrown, 15 yards, fine. As long as that player that you injured or whatever is out of the game, that's how long you're out of the game. So if Devontae Adams, it'll never happen, but say Devontae Adams had to miss the rest of the game, and Jimmy Ward's out the rest of the game, point blank, period. And, but unfortunately, that's never going to happen. But I'm amazed he came back in after one play. I'm like, well, I'm ready to write up the Devontae Adams injury story. And he came back in, made, like, as you said, Jay, made the 2 biggest catches of the night for Aaron Rodgers. I don't even think they were set plays. It's just, okay, run the route and get open, play backyard football, and we'll figure this out and we'll go win the game. But yeah, this is happening way too much around the league. And I have a feeling that if it's not going to get called Sunday night, will it get called Monday night? Knowing the NFL and their week-to-week officiating, highly doubt it.
All right, we've talked plenty about replacing Mr. Mailata at the left tackle position with their former first-round pick, Andre Dillard. Jeff's a little bit more optimistic than neither one of us are really optimistic. Jeff's a little more optimistic than me. I think it could be the difference in the game, sorry to say. But they got other replacing to do. I know we talked about it all last week, but now they actually have to do it. Now that Monday night has arrived, they got to take care of the couple of Brandons as well. Mr. Graham and Mr. Brooks, not going to be easy along that line. We're going to hope to get a Brandon opinion up here next. That would be BLG, which I did not know that. Did you know this, Jeff Kerr? That Brandon Graham's middle name is Lee?
Yeah, I thought they both were a BLG.
They are. And they both have the same exact middle name. It's Lee. I didn't know we had 2 Brandon Lees in town, last name starting with G. Yeah, that Graham guy gets a little bit more pub than our guy, but Brandon Lee Gout in the Bleeding Green Nation, scheduled to join us next. Plenty yet to talk about. It is a Monday night Dallas Cowboy Philadelphia Eagle showdown show here on Birds 365.